this. So how we're going to set this up, we're going to do a chunk of questions and then there'll be time at the back end. We try and leave about 20 to 30 minutes for a sort of open Q&A with Adam, which if you've got questions, if you can sort of pop them in the chat as we're going along, and then I'll collate them as we're going through, and then hit Adam with the tough ones as much as we can on that side. So let's kick off. So Adam, so Burnley. You gave us Jimmy Anderson and now they give us Adam Warne. So I know how great you are, I know how all the great things that happen on M Brown. So can you just add a little bit of colour about the brand and what you guys are up to over in Manchester?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I'm Adam, I'm the CIO at M Brown Group. And I guess a little bit about M Brown in case you've never heard of them. And I wouldn't forgive you if that was the case. The number of meetups I go to and people say, who do you work for? And I say, M Brown, and you get that kind of that nod that means I haven't got a clue who they are. So we're a Manchester-based business and we're a digital retailer. We operate a number of brands, probably the most famous ones being Simply Be, Giacomo and JD Williams. But we've recently launched a new home proposition, which is mega exciting, selling homeware and gifts. And I guess our purpose, our core raison d'etre is about making customers look and feel amazing. And that's not just like a slogan that we've got written on the walls like you see in a lot of businesses. We've got so many stories where us providing fashion to customers has actually been a key part of the inflection point in their life story. And so it's genuine that we feel this passion and this affiliation with our customers. I guess what people don't realise, considering nobody's heard of us, is that we've been knocking around for about 150 years. Clearly I've not been there for that long, I've been there for 2. But one of the things that runs through the business is this kind of strong entrepreneurial spirit, which is really inventive. So we were the first business to use what Royal Mail launched as the parcel post service, which is how we shipped things through the post. And shipping clothes through the post doesn't sound that exciting now, does it? But trust me, at the time, it was pretty revolutionary. And that kind of spirit still exists in the business, which is why I'm kind of surprised that we don't pop up on more people's radars, especially those who are based in the north. Is that a good enough intro, Malk?
It is. Burnley's finest, doing his stuff. It's good. It's good. I think let me jump on some of the questions then. It wouldn't feel right, given this time, if we didn't start with a bit of COVID. And as a retailer, just to really understand the sort of major impact it's had to the sector as a whole and what you guys are seeing as a result.
Yeah, I think for anybody who watches kind of any TV, listens to the radio or kind of just exists outside of any kind of bubble, I think most people are fairly well appraised about the widespread impacts on the retail sector. I mean, COVID's just kind of completely impacted businesses on a wide spectrum, whether that's at one end and there have been some clear winners, and at the other end, you know, it's been all in the press about some businesses that have gone out of business, and some people who were clearly losing. And I recall us catching up back in April with a little get together of people, and we spent a lot of time talking around the challenges of getting toilet roll and flour in a modern society. And you know, we kind of joked around what a time it would be to be in the toilet roll industry. Well, you know, I think when you think about that spectrum, you know, Amazon's share price has doubled since March. That's no accident, right? People have suddenly kind of realised that there's a simpler way to shop and there's a simpler way to do business. And, you know, even me, where Amazon could be seen as a competitor, I've relied on them massively for everything from kind of day-to-day essentials through to stuff for homeschooling. But I guess there's probably more stories and interest on the other side of that positivity coin, which is, you know, anybody with physical stores has had huge costs to deal with and zero footfall. And you've just got to look at the news around Into, the guys behind the shopping centres, gone into administration. I mean, they were kind of on a certain decline pre-COVID, and COVID's been the final nail in the coffin. And a lot of that's been driven by online retail and the shift to using more and more online and delivery. But it's not just even a UK thing, COVID. If you look at the US, I saw a tweet from Benedict Evans, and if you don't follow him, he's well worth following on Twitter. And I met him at one of the big investors in San Fran last year. Just so in touch with the tech and the industry. And he tweeted that retail in the US, e-commerce has grown from 2019 was 18%. To this year, e-commerce is like 70% of the total retail market in the US. I mean, that shift doesn't just happen naturally. That's COVID that's done it. And then there've been some wider impacts. So we do a lot of our sourcing externally to the UK. And clearly a number of other countries have had severe lockdowns, stopping production. And so that whole supply chain has been massively impacted as well. So I think this kind of crisis has actually created this quite difficult brewing pot of challenges for businesses to try and find a way through. And we certainly have found some advantages, but have also kind of had some impacts as a result. And I think one of the other things, that have happened is people have had to react to this change of kind of what people are shopping into. As retailers, you've kind of had this predictability. And if I hear the word unprecedented again after this is all passed, I think I'm going to just jump off a bridge or something, because it's just been so difficult to plan for. I mean, everything from staffing to the products that you need to stock, it has been unprecedented.
Yeah. No, look, I think we're seeing that absolutely across the clients of And Digital as well. Probably leads me nicely onto the second question, actually, which was, we're seeing this sort of digital gold rush thing going on at the moment where, in particular, those who have relied heavily on that sort of footfall in the bricks and mortar world, really accelerating their plans to digital. There's a number and quite a few of them on the call who are already well on that path. Now, how are you as M Brown, going to stay ahead of that rush where, those funds now are looking quite significant in terms of where those guys have invested?
Yeah, I think there are kind of a few camps, right? There's the camp where you've been offline and you're going to stay offline, whatever offline means these days. You've got the camp of offline who are migrating on. And interestingly, there seems to be some conflicting news about Primark, who seem to be the last bastion of kind of the offline retail model moving online. And then you've got your online digital retailers who have seen actually a bigger opportunity. And are actually accelerating to try and get more of their customer base online. I think in terms of kind of keeping ahead of the competition and doing the right thing, and making sure that we stay the test of time. I mean, we are an inspired business, and I touched on this with the intro. We've got heaps of great ideas. Mark, I know you know about most of them because we speak to you about helping us deliver them. And we've kind of got all the right capabilities and relationships to execute on them. I think there are a few things that provide some form of insulation for us and some form of protection. And that's about being a differentiator. So firstly, we've got, 150 years of experience in retailing. And whilst James David Williams still doesn't, pop into the office because obviously he's passed away, we do still have this deep ingrained experience of retailing in the business. And we rely on that heavily. We've also got a really loyal customer base. So we've had customers for decades and still love shopping with us. So our demographic of customers is really broad. And you can actually migrate through the brands that help us keep those customers in the business. And then on that differentiated point, we really are differentiated. So we not only offer an inclusive range of sizes to help everybody look and feel amazing, but the level of thought and design and kind of technology that goes into the design of our products is truly astonishing. So, it's always really interesting when you're not in fashion, as I probably don't look too much in fashion today, Malcolm. You usually give me grief about that. But it's almost magical to hear about things like, the secret buttons in shirts and blouses that make sure it doesn't pop open at the wrong point, or how we're weaving together fabrics to create denim that, flatter and hold the shape in all the right places. And then we've been investing in digital fit for a long time. And this is where we've been scanning bodies of different ages, sizes, and genders to try and work out how the body develops as it grows and as it gets older. So we create fashion that really fits perfectly. And we've been doing that way before any of the competition. So when you buy from us, you get products that do fit for you. And I think that's a massive differentiator for us. I did get the chance to get scanned when I joined the business, but I didn't really fancy getting down to my underwear for the sake of science.
Yeah, spot body's tea there, Adam.
but all of these investments, they're kind of like investments we've made up front, right? You know, we're not playing catch up. We're not scurrying to get online. We've invested in this stuff ahead of the curve. And so I think it's these things that are going to protect us somewhat from some of the competition who are now trying to catch up.
It must admit, it was one of the biggest surprises when I started working with you, when it was hearing about some of that stuff. Maybe it's something you guys maybe need to shout about a little bit more. I remember at Morrison's how so much of their stuff was grown locally and stuff like that, and they went through starting to really bring that into the brand and stuff like that, and I think it did have a big impact for them. So yeah, no, really interesting, really interesting. The next one sort of links into sort of both of them I've got is around sort of key lessons learned during this bit, the ones that have been almost accidental and the ones that actually were strategic, smart moves from you guys that you want to shout about.
I think the subtext of the invite was who led the digital transformation of the retail sector, the CEO, the CIO of COVID-19. And it's funny because it's true, right? I mean, it's forced everyone, not just retailers, to respond faster than any of their business would have been able to naturally under normal circumstances. Because normally, you'd run a project to move everyone remote, and you'd be talking 12 or 18 months. You'd be doing risk assessments and communication strategies and training plans. And nobody had the time to do that. Everybody might have had some form of business continuity plan, but nobody was ready for this stuff. And so I think, one of the things that's happened is we've all learned to react. So within days, we'd moved all of our workforce to be remote. And for the people in logistics who can't do that, we'd put all of the right steps in place to make it one of the safest workplaces in the area. We had social distancing measures, we had thermal imaging cameras to make sure people weren't coming in with high temperatures. And we've continued that through to make sure we can still offer the service to our customers. And I think that is one of the big lessons in this for everyone. It's about creating that belief about what's possible, and how fast can you react to a market condition, and therefore how fast can you differentiate from the competition. I think the strategy question's a good one. So we've been working to a fairly clear, believable and well-articulated strategy for the last 18 months. That was built up through the senior leadership team of the business, spearheaded and backed by the CEO and a great exec team. And one of those strands was about diversifying the portfolio and growing into a home market, to where people like Dunelm and Wayfair play, to quite a lot of success. So we saw that as an opportunity. And we always had it in the plan to deliver this kind of home brand, this brand new brand, in about the start of April time. And we did. We landed it pretty much within a couple of days of when we said we were going to land. And it's a good job we did, because actually lots of people have been buying into homeware through lockdown. And it's really helped us keep driving the business forward in a positive momentum and a positive direction, whilst a lot of the competition have probably struggled with certain areas of their sales. I think the question about was it accidental or was it strategy is an interesting one. Was it luck? I think you make your own luck, and I think good strategies work pretty much regardless of what. They're all about kind of diversifying and
We lost him.
Secondly, it's given us a lot of insight into our customers that we might.
I think we're having some problems with your Wi-Fi, Adam.
Am I back?
I can hear you now. You can always tell when people start turning off their cameras because they think it's their end.
Am I back? No? Yeah?
I can hear you.
Right, I'll carry on. I mean, this is one of the things we've learned.
It might be worth trying, Adam.
Crazy.
Trying with your video off, mate. Try that and see.
All right. Well, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Let's try it.
All right. Let's see how we go. I've got a backup plan. I can always switch networks if we need to, Malcolm.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now, mate. It's coming through. So.
Yeah, this is us getting used to the 6 o'clock boom when people are actually turning off from their work and actually like streaming Netflix and.
Yep. Oh, we're having a mare.
Sorry about that, everyone. This is the power. I'm running on 4G now, so this is I've come off all the stuff where everyone's streaming, and I'm now on mobile internet.
Yes, tell you what, it's rock and roll. So, should we jump back into that question that we had, Adam?
Yeah, where did you get to?
So we got this. Actually, did we cover off most of that, the strategic and the accidental elements?
Yeah, so that's pretty much it, really. I think the big lesson is diversify, protect, and assume the unexpected. Right, this is about unpredictability is now a part of our everyday lives.
Yeah, cool. The next bit, I'm a bit of a hyper analytical, bit of a data freak, so I'm going to sort of take this into a different direction. One of the things that really stood out to me working with you guys is how data rich your business is because of the financial services arm linked into the retail side. A little bit about sort of future of retail now, start to move into that space. So how important is that to N Brown as a business, and how do you think the importance of that going forward in this sort of digital world for retail in general as well?
Yeah, so this is very much I guess I'll blend this with a business opinion and N Brown's of my own. So I think data is hugely important, and the business do as well. It's kind of like the big enabler, I think, to successful retailing. And I guess to build on that context that you gave about data in our business, we bought our first computer system that was a mainframe in 1968. So as a business, we've been kind of data literate for a long time. Couple that we sell now a wide array of products. We've got lots of customers, we've got multiple brands, multiple channels, and as you alluded to, we've got a financial services arm. We've just got such a wealth of information and data in the business that it would almost be criminal to not be using that in an effective way to demonstrate value for our customers on a more regular basis. And for me, it's kind of the ladder of data. So we've got all of the data at the ground level, and what we're really good at actually is turning that into information that we can digest and take actions on. And I think the real value is going to come from turning that on a more regular basis into really actionable insight. So we've got a team of data scientists, who are just brilliant at what they do. And we just need to get better at doing it. And I think lots of other retailers and businesses are on this curve of, there was the big hype of big data and AI and all the rest of it. And there's this really kind of pragmatic way of doing that, of making it valuable and not just kind of doing it for the sake of it. And that's what we're doing now. So we've created data fellowships in the business to create a wider understanding and appreciation of what data is and how to use it. We've been running data meetup groups to kind of share the community learnings about data science and how that plays into it. And really, I think one of the big areas that this is going to help our business, it's kind of moving away from this gut feel and being more data led. So it's all right having instincts and all right being kind of driven by beliefs, but how can you get data to kind of prove that point for you or make the decision? So you invest in areas that are more rewarding and more likely to offer a return. I think that's kind of the power of data.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the most exciting part of retail at the moment. I think the whole, we start to link into the experimentation elements and the user research and the labs element and all the ability of what you can do now. It is pretty exciting. Also been quite interesting to see how it changes quite a lot of behaviours when you do it right as well, from a cultural perspective, which has been one of the interesting byproducts I've seen over the last couple of years with it. Let me change tact again. So having worked with you, I know you are one of the most people-focused CIOs I've worked with for a long, long time, which is a massive compliment, by the way. And I know that you're on a big mission to drive a load of additional internal employees within there. So that talent challenge is massive for all of us in the, not necessarily the North, but across the UK. So in terms of attracting the right talent, what are you doing in terms of 2020, in terms of that whole change of culture and what the journey you've been on the last couple of years with Ben Brown? Because I've seen quite a significant change in my time working alongside you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. How why you believe that I'm people focused? Maybe more so than some others. Because I mean, ultimately, I used to be a technologist. I used to be hands-on keyboard, and slowly and gradually moved away from that and became more interested in the people side of things. And usually, actually, my strategy is just to hire people who are better than I am at my job, and that seems to have done me quite well in my career. But ultimately, it's the people who, it wasn't hard to find them, by the way. Loads of people are better at my job. But
you said that first.
Just getting in before you. But it's them who are making the change, right? It's the people on the ground who are driving the business forward. I mean, for quite a long time, we've tried to internally turn org charts upside down and have the people driving all the value at the top of the org chart and roles like mine at the bottom to support them. It's just a pain in the backside to keep updating these things. But that is genuinely how myself and the rest of the leadership team at M Brown see the team. That's where the value is delivered. I think the challenge for us as a business has been hiring and bringing in and finding the right talent. So when I joined the business, only 18% were permanent employees within the tech function, so less than 20. And I'm a big believer in bringing in outside talent. Well, obviously I work with you guys as well to supplement and add value to that existing team. But I think less than 20% of the technical workforce is too light. And so what I've been really interested in doing at M Brown is bringing in high caliber, high quality talent at different levels of experience to really help drive us forward as a business. And part of that is about building that brand. So when I do these things and I talk about who M Brown are, I don't need to, because people are already aware of who that is. And I think a big part of that's about investing in emerging talent. So, whether that's apprenticeships, grads, developing those careers and building a team who are really personally invested in the business because we've been personally invested in them. So we're doing things like investing in boot camp. So we do some boot camp type resourcing. We do, we're well on with apprenticeship schemes. We've had more than 100 apprentices in the business. We've brought grads in, and it is just about, one, giving new leaders the ability to manage and learn management and leadership skills whilst upping our kind of technical game. And we've become, actually, it's not just me that's done this, but as a business, we've become far more employee focused. So last year we launched an all-inclusive employee bonus. That means all permanent employees are now on the bonus scheme, not just, for certain roles or people, everybody in the business is on this. But I think one of the biggest shifts has been the opportunity that this has presented. So we have in the past been a very office-based business. We've had flexible working. You can spend some time working from home. But we've always tried to hire people who can work in the centre of Manchester. And for anybody who's tried to hire in Manchester or across the north, it's becoming more and more difficult. More and more businesses are moving out of London, more and more businesses moving into the north. And it's just becoming congested from an employer perspective. And people are just throwing more and more money at roles to try and attract the talent, which is driving up the cost. And I think what this has done, it's provided an opportunity and a bit of insight that says, well, for the last 3 or 4 months, everybody's been remote anyway. So what are the opportunities here? Could we go for a cross UK workforce? Or actually, could we now look at workforces from across the world and have a global workforce if there isn't a permanent need to be in the office? And then I know when we visited San Francisco and looking at all the cool startups and all of these well-established businesses as well, there were very, very few of them, in fact, none, who had an entirely Silicon Valley-based workforce. You know, they were all tapping into talent from across the world because they just couldn't get the talent at the right price in Silicon Valley. And it's almost like a bit of a faceplant moment where they've been doing this for a while. And I don't think here in the UK we've been accepting enough of this as an opportunity. And so now we're looking at, you know, what is the potential to bridge this gap between what we want and what we've previously been able to achieve.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I say, we did our first little bit of business in Leeds and Manchester with Silicon Valley startup recently as part of this, which you know, again, it's been interesting from that perspective, and as I said, it's been faultless. Which leads me nicely on to the next question, which you've sort of answered a little bit of, is that whole work from home element. And I'm looking at a couple of guys in the audience as well who've asked similar questions around this. They're all tackling this property, work from home, this change element that's happened. You know, what are you seeing at M Brown in terms of the things that have surprised you and the things that, again, the opportunities that this has potentially presented, other than one you've already mentioned?
Yeah, look, whenever you talk about working from home, you can't ignore the question of trust. It comes up all the time. And I guess COVID resulted in you having to trust everybody implicitly and then work backwards from that until that trust was breached. I don't think we've ever had trust issues at M Brown. I think we've felt like we've been held back by either tech limitations like network cutting out, as what happened to me. Communication's always been a big worry. And actually, I've always personally been a big fan of physical Kanban boards and things where you physically go and move stuff along to make you feel like you're bought into it and you're actually making progress. But actually what's happened is none of that stuff's really mattered. And the positives have outweighed the negatives, in my opinion, certainly for us as a business. So working remotely, we've seen people having less distractions, being more focused. You know, meetings now have purpose instead of kind of, you know, you've got an hour, you'd sit in a meeting room and fill that hour. And so I think people have been better at organising their time. I think the negatives have been around like a collaboration type exercise. So when you wanted to brainstorm or get around a whiteboard, I think it's harder to kind of bounce off each other when you're on Teams or when you're on video calls. And I don't think we've quite got the etiquette perfect with that stuff yet. And then the social elements as well, you know, this building social tokens in the bank with your fellow employees, whether that's lunch, dinner, a couple of drinks, or just a corridor conversation. That's I think where we're missing some of the value now, where it's that interpersonal interaction that happens. But I think that communication point is really interesting. Whilst we saw it as a potential risk, I actually think our comms is better now internally than it was. So we've got a daily kind of blast out to the whole business. We do a weekly newsletter now. And then one of the things that we started right at the start of the crisis was we started doing this thing called the live stream, which is me a little bit like this, talking to the entire department on a weekly basis about current affairs, what's going on in the department, in the business, in the wider world. And then at the end, we just do a live Q&A. And there's kind of no holds barred, right? You can ask me anything. And I've got to try and answer it on the spot there and then.
Yeah, well,
which can be interesting.
We'll do that again in a minute, Matt. It's going to be exciting.
Well, I should be well versed and practiced at this stuff. And now and again, you get these curveball questions like, you know, if you were going to be a biscuit, what biscuit would you be? Which was probably one of the weirdest questions that I've had. And we've had some fun with it too. Sorry, Malcolm, what was that?
What biscuit were you?
Well, as I said, I was caught off guard, so I just came up with nice biscuit, which is a bit boring, but. But you know, it is about trying to bring that fun back into the workplace, even though you can't kind of go and do that in person. And so I think we've learned loads of lessons, but for us, the kind of the lasting effect has been far more positive. because it's about output. It's not about presenteeism. It's about what are you driving out of the team. And what we're seeing is, certainly from a tech perspective, we're seeing more productivity as a result of this.
That's general feeling I'm seeing across lots of our clients, you know, especially the techies being able to properly get down without the distractions in particular. Yeah, really interesting. So one last question before I sort of open up. I've seen some good questions already in the chat. The funny is, what are the things that people are buying, Adam? That we're a strange breed, us humans. What are we buying?
Well, so look, firstly, if you're interested in anything on our sites or anything full stop, have a look at what we sell, because it's pretty broad. I mean, I play a little bit of a game, which is every time I'm interested in buying something, I'll have a look to see if we sell it. I've actually bought a chainsaw from us in the past. So literally, if there's something you're considering buying, check out Home Essentials. I think there's been a trend in fashion, which has been loungewear, comfort wear. You know, people have clearly been more interested in being comfortable at home. And I'm always interested to know whether people are buying stuff.
Have you got joggers on underneath that nice blazer?
Not today, but my team once noticed that I was wearing shorts because of the reflection in the piano. So that, you know, it's interesting whether people are just clothing properly from the waist up or not. But then some of the wider trends have been interesting, and some have been quite obvious. So I think one of the trends has been keeping the kids entertained. You know, homeschooling's been tough for any parent, and keeping the kids entertained during holidays. So video games, consoles, outdoor toys, all of that stuff's been massively popular for us. The UK seems to have gone hair mad as well. So no surprise, hairdressers and barbers shut down. You know, we couldn't kind of keep hold of stock of hair clippers for love nor money. I mean, people were just going crazy for hair clippers. So I think there's been this real binary thing of people have either just let it grow out of control, or they've just been shaving it all off. And for women, kind of beauty products and styling for hair as well has been really popular. But I think one of the biggest surprising trends has been in the outdoor space. Because if you remember at the start of lockdown, I mean, the weather was amazing. Loads of people were buying into kind of furniture and garden wear to kind of to supplement this al fresco living. Well, I can tell you our number one item that I've heard more about in the last 4 months has been hot tubs. More people have bought hot tubs than I thought were possible. This is like the UK craze. So if you have not got a hot tub, you need to get on and have a look. We sell some pretty cheap starting prices for hot tubs. They go up to some of the pretty expensive stuff. But God knows what people are doing. I've just got this mental image of like people partying in hot tubs while the kids are playing on video games and having haircuts. that seems to be my mental model of the world now. But yeah, it's been an interesting time for us. But I'm really pleased that we've got this home brand set up and running.
Yeah, you don't want to see me in a hot tub. That's certainly not one for the camera. Yeah. Anyway, so finishing on that, hot tubs in Burnley. We'll finish on that little bombshell. Let's open up for some sort of questions. Let me just pick a couple randomly. Oh, I've got that one stood out straight away. Hi, Adam. Great blazer, as always. Mark, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, you're right. Yeah. I'm definitely not doing the shorts combo, I promise. Yeah, so Adam, I think it's been really interesting. Obviously, a lot of businesses moved so many people to home overnight, and a lot of processes were circumvented in doing that. And I think it really polarized kind of what processes are there as, you know, to keep us safe, keep on track, and which ones are there, you know, that aren't necessarily needed. And I'm just wondering how you've got on in terms of, because I know you've been doing a lot of innovation in terms of that, where it's helped you drive that faster and expedite changes, because people are a bit more of the mentality of let's get stuff done, let's swarm around things, or whether it's been the other way and you've had to kind of put more safety measures in place.
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess the answer isn't simple, but I'll try and simplify it. So as a business, I guess you could argue we've got two businesses in one. We've got retail, which is fast-paced, you know, really innovative, trying to do lots of trading type initiatives, and then you've got financial services, which is still trying to be fast-paced, but is clearly more guarded in regulation. the FCA, the governing body, and we have to comply with certain regulations, especially coming into COVID where, there were lots of people going through financial crisis and we had to react to make sure we were doing the right thing for our customers. But I guess from a delivery perspective, which I'm guessing is where your question's coming from, we have removed a lot of governance around how we get stuff done. And a lot of that has come from two places, really. One has been necessity, because we've just been trying to react to the market. And if we followed all of our normal processes that were in place before, there's a good chance that we wouldn't get there fast enough. So we've not removed them, we've just found ways of expediting them and doing them faster. But I think the biggest thing around this that's helped is we've gone from a portfolio of lots of different priorities, and we've now got a portfolio of a very few really distinctive big rock priorities that we now want to go and execute on really fast. And I think the big advantage here is in context switching. We've got a finite workforce, we've got a finite management team, and that mental cognitive load of, I'm working on this, but I need to go and review this and I need to work out this. It's amazing how much time and effort goes into reprioritizing and switching contexts between different areas of delivery. That's been far bigger, I think, an advantage than all of the other things that we've done to streamline processes. We have actually, just to make it really easy for us, introduced a new prioritization framework called RICE. I don't know if you're familiar with RICE. Yeah. Reach, Impact, Confidence and Effort. And that's actually applied some science to what we're doing from that portfolio perspective to make it really easy for people to kind of have the conversation about great idea, just not right now, or great idea, this is better than the other stuff that we've got. But yeah, I think for any business who hasn't changed their governance stance without clearly breaching regulations, etc., I think they've missed the trick in this.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting, especially on the priority bit. Yeah, it's really interesting that in terms of how, the clearer the priority, the more effective teams can be, because it takes out a lot of the waste of redoing things. But yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks, Adam.
No worries.
I'll pick on the one, client partnerships number one. I can only assume that's you, is it, Will?
It is me. Occasionally it's others in the team and then we get kicked out of calls, but normally it's me. Hey Adam, good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
On your hot tub point, actually, I was speaking to Very Group, and they also were selling out of hot tubs. So it isn't just the M Brown customer base that have been getting stuck into there. I had two, but I'll go with the top one, linking into seeing Mark there as well. We were talking about this earlier today, actually, just kind of a lot of content and thinking about what's happening in retail and the changes in retail. Very obvious to all of us as consumers and very easy for the broader public to sort of relate to. The question, I guess, is what have you seen across retail that you think other industries can learn from and bring in? And then looking at people like Mark and we got Nick on there from kind of insurance and gaming. What have you seen in your industries that you think others can learn from as well?
So I've been in retail now for probably about 13 years. And prior to that, I was in kind of pure FS. And I think one thing's been true of retail for quite some time, which is that they're a really innovative industry. Retail for quite some time has been all about the consumer and understanding what their needs are, and then finding innovative ways of bridging that gap to their needs. So, I mean, even if, look, I almost see Airbnb as being retail, right? All right, it's hospitality, but it's selling something to a consumer. It's bridging a gap. I think there are lots of industries that are still quite kind of inward looking about what's right for the business and not what's right for the end user or the consumer. And there's almost like a lack of innovation that can come from that. So I think the one thing that you could learn from retail is, how to think differently about innovation. I mean, Mark touched on it. We are a very innovative business. But one of the ways that we almost tried to do innovation at one point was have it as a thing off to the side, almost like a separate team who would go and do the really innovative things. And one of the things that we've done in recent times is move away from that model and move it into a place where it's everybody's job to innovate. So if you've got a team who are working on search on the website, I want that team innovating. I don't want a different team doing it. And it's trying to get this kind of breadth of innovation across all the people in the business. But, so many times, even from a personal level, it's like lots of industries forgot about the end person, the consumer, the person who pays the money. One of the things that I've been doing whilst I've been at home working remotely is realizing all the bits around the house that need doing. Now, one, I'm not very good at DIY, and secondly, I haven't had time. But the trades industry, trying to get them to understand what a customer needs, it's been nigh on impossible. I've had like zero good experiences with dealing with tradespeople over the last kind of 3-4 months. So what is there in that industry that's really going to change them and be more focused on the consumer? On the flip side, coming into this, we needed milk on a regular basis and didn't want to go to the supermarket. So there's a thing called Modern Milkman, which connects customers with local milkmen. And so you can place orders. It's almost like internet shopping, and you can get milk, eggs, butter, etc. delivered. And they bridged the gap, just like Airbnb did. They've thought about what the problem is that people are trying to solve, and bridged it to the consumer needs. So that's what I think anyway. But clearly, I'm quite indoctrinated into retail after 13 years of joy.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, and then any other industries on the call that want to share what you've seen across yours and where you think others might learn?
I'm just wondering if Mark or Nick in particular, I know you guys are.
Yeah, no problem. I think we could talk a bit about. It's been very interesting. I think obviously we lost the sports market back in March overnight, so quite a significant revenue stream turned off for. So I work at Sky Betting and Gaming, and it was really interesting for us as a business because we were about to enter sort of the football season. Some of the pre stuff, a lot of the horse racing, the big events as well. So for us, it was a bit of a worrying time, to be honest. But what we saw was a big shift of our customer base moving over to the gaming sector as sort of leisure players. And I think that was really interesting for us because for years, I kid you not, in every strategy deck I've seen and strategy we've done is we really need to go after cross-sell. But then we have the bet side where the demand comes and the growth that we've had there, and then gaming. So all of a sudden we had this cross-sell opportunity. And I think, yeah, to Adam's point, it's incredible what a crisis will do to make you focus on your priorities and also go after opportunities that often just get moved downwards. And I think for us, then we had to really look at how do we react to those customers, but get to know them really well. So we knew them as betting players, but we didn't know them as gaming players. So I think, Adam, your point around, really understanding your customers. And I've just moved house, so I can absolutely get on board with your experiences with tradesmen. I've been waiting for a plumber for nearly 4 weeks now. So I think for us, it was really about how do we get to know those customers quickly, and then adapt and then respond to that and tailor experiences to that cross-sell, but without displacing that revenue and that customer loyalty we built up over the years in bet. So it's quite interesting, and you really have to go back to the customer, understanding them, and then understanding them in a new environment in terms of how will they play on our gaming products today, but then and how do we bring them into that ecosystem, but then equally how do we make sure we take them back over to bet when that sport comes back. And I think that's, it's a really interesting challenge. And I think that's where for us as a business, we've really tried to gear ourselves over the years around being customer obsessed and making sure we've got the right tools in place so that we can survey, interact, and then experiment, with those customers. And I think there's always so much more we can do in that space, but it certainly sets you up to respond to that change really quickly. So they're kind of some of the major shifts that we saw, which was really interesting. And now, as the population gets back to a bit more normality, we're seeing those customers go back towards bet, and the leisure players that we'd found coming more to the gaming products obviously moving away. So we're on to a different challenge now, which is how do we create experiences for those players with less time that are going back to their busy lives and keep them playing, keep them interested. So it's amazing, that shift and how quickly you've got to respond to that, but you can't miss those opportunities because they're worth a fortune to your organisation.
Yeah, very interesting. I'll change tax. George, you've got a couple of questions up on the board. Do you want to call one of those out, or do you want me to pick on one?
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. The most important would be how did you keep your employees educated during the COVID? I'm very interested in digital learning, digital education. So actually, how did you do that?
Well, I think firstly we've got quite a broad spectrum of employees in the business, right? You know, not everybody's technical. I think the learning journey for our employees has been different depending on backgrounds. And as I alluded to, I think if you were entering the crisis in a planned way, you'd probably come about this in a very different manner. You'd probably have training programs and education programs that we just didn't have in place. But I think two things have come out of this. One is, you know, in a crisis, people react in a way that makes them navigate through it. So, you know, even though we didn't have all of that training and things in place, you're kind of willing to try things and experiment and figure things out for yourself a little bit more. And that's very much one of the things that we've seen, along with more of a social network, I guess, of people, of a support network. So, you know, one of the big beliefs that I have is in things like pair programming for engineers. You know, that second pair of eyes on things. More difficult, arguably, in this way of working, or getting that support from senior members of your team who are more technically proficient, or you understanding how to use collaboration tools more effectively, like Teams or Zoom or whiteboarding and all the rest of it. We were underprepared, but I think having a collective of some people who are very knowledgeable, some people less so, you know, great communication strategies really help with that. We've also had like a number of workshops and things that we've held to try and encourage people to kind of adopt tools to pick up new skills and learn. So we're actually going through a couple of projects at the moment about changing technology stacks in certain areas. And so we've been investing in online learning portals to try and help people make that change. You know, this is actually a really good opportunity to do some of that stuff with a support network of, you know, I'll call it out. Malcolm hasn't asked me to do this, but, you know, we brought AND people in to help us do that. So part of the AND model is give you skills in the business to deliver things, but at the same time, cross-skill your existing workforce. And so we've been leaning on AND quite heavily through this period as well. I think the second thing has been around kind of this acceptance to fail. You know, I think in the past we might have been guilty of wanting to perfect everything first time and having that really high expectation. And I think what's been driven through this crisis is this overarching message of just try it. You know, nothing bad's going to happen. Just give things a go. You know, if you're not used to using video calls or this is a new technology, it's like just try things. You know, it's almost like trying to create it into more of a sandpit for people and making them more comfortable with being uncertain. I still think there's a way to go to kind of optimize this. You know, we're still finding our feet. I mean, for us, the business, 3 months disappeared in the blink of an eye, and there's still a lot of opportunity to kind of go and improve this stuff. But, you know, COVID has absolutely made us pivot as a business really quickly. And then our customers have also done the same thing. So our move to digital consumers now has increased probably faster than it had done in any prior 3 or 4 month chunk, because people have just been trying it, right? People have just, you know, people who've never ordered online grocery shopping before suddenly have been trying online grocery shopping, and they've realized that when they've ordered this pie to feed the family, it's turned up and it's only been big enough for one person, right? And all these kind of test and learn experiences that have been going on in the market not only have been happening inside our business, but for consumers as well. And so I think just not us as a business, but this wider market has all kind of accepted this thing of testing and learning and just trying things out for the first time. And I hope, and certainly I'm not going to let us move backwards as a business, that we don't just suddenly flip back to the old way. Hopefully people have learned that there's a new way of doing all this stuff and it's not as bad as what people thought. Does that answer your question, George?
Yes, it is. It is. I was interesting, but I had another question based on your words. What kind of values do you follow during your leadership work? Actually, I think you have very valuable values, if I understand well.
Yeah, look, values and behaviours are really important to any business, and we're very fortunate that, firstly, we've built a leadership team in the business, and that's not just the exec team, that's the wider leadership team who have a very strong value set, and we've hired based on those values. So we hire on values first. And 12 months ago, we embarked on the journey to reposition those values, and we canvassed more than half of the workforce to find out what it meant to be an M Brown employee. And we came out with kind of 4 really strong values. One was together for the customer, making sure that, you know, we are absolutely bought into improving things for the customer. One was driven by curiosity. So how can we make sure that everything we're doing is kind of testing and learning and pushing the needle, and we're asking all the right questions. One was motivated by pace. So, you know, are we working fast enough? And because I'm on the spot, I've forgot the 4th one, so I'll have to come back to you on that one, George. But I promise, I live and breathe them every day of my life.
Great question. We're sort of running out of time, so I'm going to quickly pick on one last one. So apologies, Tom and Simon. I'm going to pick on Jackie's. Jackie, do you want to ask your question? Okay, I will ask it. I'll ask it for
Jackie. Question.
Yeah, we hear. Yeah, we
Can
hear.
you hear me now?
Go on, Jackie, go for it.
Hi, so I do know M Brown because I did work there for 7.5 years. And I was really interested when you talked about retail and saying that having worked in retail, it's a very innovative sector. And yet, obviously, within this COVID time, we've seen many high street retailers going to the wall. And consultants often talk about retailers needing to digitally transform or go through a digital transformation in order to survive in the technology change, and during COVID even more so. So I just wondered, what does digital transformation mean to you from your experience? Because it's bandied around a lot, but I just wonder what exactly it means.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's almost like big data and agile now. You know, it's almost like it means so much to so many people, and we haven't fully stopped using it, because I think it is a term that certainly people like analysts and investors understand. And for us, it's about, you know, how can we use digital tools and technologies to improve the business and the lives of our customers. The term digital transformation doesn't quite sit brilliantly with me, if I'm being completely honest, and I'll tell you why. So for me, transformation is, you know, like a caterpillar to a butterfly. You know, it's a caterpillar one day, it goes through the chrysalis phase, and then it becomes a butterfly, and then it's a butterfly till it dies. It almost makes it sound like it's a one-time event where you go through this big change and you come out the other side and you're this beautiful butterfly and everything's brilliant. But the world's not like that. Mm-hmm. You know, I actually see digital transformation as almost like digital evolution. It's setting yourself up, which you could argue is the transformation, but then you have to rapidly evolve forever and ever. And I've got this kind of view that I would never, I'd almost see it as a failure if I in a business had to digitally transform more than once. And I know that some retailers have. For me, it's very much more about setting yourself up for the onward success and the realization that the world is now going to completely evolve at a rate of knots. You know, if you follow Moore's law that the world, you know, the number of processors doubles every 18 months, etc. this is what's happening in the world of digital. And it's not just like for the techies now, this is happening for consumers across the globe. And so you've got to set yourself up where you're creating the right business model, structure, technology, team, and everything else that goes with it that enables you to evolve and modify faster than you've ever done before. Because I think if you were being really harsh and you judged yourself based on tech capability doubling every 18 months, is your business capability doubling every 18 months? I don't think anybody would say yes. And so that's the missed opportunity. How can you enable your business to get really good at evolving to try and keep pace with the progress that technology is bringing in? And so that's how I see digital transformation. It's about getting yourself ready for that rapid evolution.
Great answer. Great answer. And great question, Jackie. So
yeah,
we've run out of time, which is a real shame because I was hoping for a little tune on the piano, Adam. If we were
run out of time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what the knees up Mother Brown is in Burnley. But we'll
you realise I don't live in Burnley anymore, Malcolm.
No, you don't. I know you don't. You've up sticks and sold out, mate. I know that. Yeah. So look, massive thanks, Adam, for the time, and thank you everyone for the questions. I think it's been really, really insightful. We've got a few more coming up. We've got Dr. Data, Tim Hatton, doing a piece on COVID impact on customer behaviour, which will be fascinating knowing Tim. We've also got an interview with Kevin Bulmer from Robert Walters, which obviously the recruitment sector is going through some rapid change. So again, that'll be really fascinating. And then we've got one coming up all in September with Craig Tillotson from Ordo, really interesting fintech, which will save you a fortune, Adam, if you're looking in that payment space. Worth a look at. So yeah, look, thank you everybody. Been really fascinating, and Adam, you're a gent as always.
No worries. Thanks for the time. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
Thank you.